I passed him.
Нет, не будут.
Yes, 100%, 100%, 100%. Now that you have Google open, I encourage you to look up the law that Putin passed that prevents his power from removing him or from impeaching him. Putin also passed another law that removes the limitation on how many years a president can be in power in Russia. He changed that law also. He changed a whole bunch of laws lately to make himself the only leader for Russia forever.
So how?
Complete autocracy. How is it possible? Very good question. Ask the Russian people how it's possible. How did you guys allow this to happen to yourself?
You're thinking there's no support there.
No support from who? From the Russians? Of course there's support. Haven't you seen the protest of the Z zombies walking around Moscow shouting, nuke London, nuke Washington, nuke Berlin? Haven't you seen those protests?
Every day.
Haven't you seen the people with the Z swastikas walking about saying we're going to exterminate the Ukrainians? Haven't you seen all of that? Of course there's support for Putin.
There are in every country groups of people that are on the fringe.
The fringe. Now, you know, that's a good point actually. My friends, this is an important point to speak of. Every single country in the world has fringe parties. Every single country in the world has Nazis, so-called communists, everything you can think of, flat earthers. But my friends, the point is not every country in the world has those fringe individuals, those extremists ruling the country. That is the difference. In Russia, they are in charge. The people who are shouting, oh, let's start this war and that war, the West is evil, Ukraine is a bunch of Ukro-Nazis. They are in charge in Russia.
So they or just Putin?
They will put it. That's a good question also.
Because
You
you
know,
just say that it's just Putin.
I did, of course, but no one, but listen,
Now
listen.
it
my
becomes
friend,
a name.
my friend. Let me once again talk about the autocracy. An autocracy is not one person does literally everything.
Okay.
It's one person
So-
decides the important questions. All of the important questions are decided by only Putin. However, Putin
I think
has a whole government working for him.
I think-
Nobody has the capability to rule a country with no help whatsoever. Putin has a country-sized criminal syndicate helping him rule Russia. Putin has established a whole network of corruption in Russia with people directly dependent on him.
But the most corrupt country in Europe is Ukraine.
I know where this is going.
Oh,
The most corrupt country in Europe is Ukraine. So let's talk about this for a second.
Let's Google it again.
And
Let's talk about
and
this.
so
Let's
No,
Google
no,
it
hold on,
again.
hold on.
so
No?
Now,
so
No.
no, hold on a second, hold on. My friend,
I didn't
my
bring
friend,
that in.
Ukraine is not invading other countries and trying to spread its corruption to other countries. Ukraine is fixing its corruption. They are measured, of course it is. Haven't you heard of the many organs of anti-corruption in Ukraine? A lot of the previously,
Well, I'm
the
from
people
Italy and I
previously
hear
in
it all
power.
again
are you from Romania, yeah?
all the time. But
Romania?
it's still
Italy,
one
yeah?
of the
You
most
know your
corrupt.
president does support Ukraine. Georgian, she supports Ukraine. And good on her. But anyway, last question, my friend. Last question, because we do need to move on with the topics. Any last question you'd like to ask?
No, my
Italia,
first
yeah?
question was about the decree. That, I mean, I showed you the proof that
Yeah,
there's
that's
a decree
Putin.
that is not possible to, that is impossible to talk with Putin.
Yeah, of course it is.
Putin is the president of Russia. I mean, you cannot change that.
But is it though?
We can speak about Mussolini.
The last
About
election
Mussolini.
in Russia. You know, I went to the Russian embassy when they were doing the last election. And I saw the huge queue of people that were queuing up to vote. Now, most of them claimed they were against Putin, but I don't know, I guess we have to take them up on their word. Some of them claim they support Putin. And we had a discussion with them, we asked them why, obviously they couldn't come up with any reasons, but alas. The important thing I want you to think about is the queue was still absolutely huge when they closed the embassy and did not let anyone else vote. You think of any reason why that might be?
I mean, there's always reasons for this kind of thing.
There's always reasons, there's always made up reasons
there is,
for any
there is plenty of reasons
autocratic regime.
because obviously it's not such an easy
Oh,
topic.
no,
It's
no,
so
no.
complicated.
My friend, I'm sorry, but it is not complicated to take a vote on some people. It's not complicated to extend the vote from 1 day to 2 days. They could have easily done that. And there's a lot of Russians here in London to vote. They knew what they were doing. They did this because it really didn't matter what the Russians would vote for. In the end, Putin would still win with a landslide.
So,
Just like the
but
election.
you don't see that
Look at one
you
thing.
just contradict yourself. You're just saying that he would have won anyway.
He would.
So,
election was rigged.
So why did they stop keep voting?
Because it didn't matter. Because it didn't matter at all.
They would have a better argument. Say, oh, we let them vote.
But they don't care.
Or
This is the point you're
the
missing.
wall of
They
them.
don't care about what people see in the West. They know people don't really care much about Ukraine or Russia. Like people like you,
Yeah.
people like you didn't know where Ukraine was before the war started.
I knew.
Of course you did. No problem. Whether you knew or not, the point is, we're not asking you to care all of a sudden, all of a sudden I must care about Ukraine. We're asking you to know. And there's one thing I will ask you to do. When
I spend hours.
I like the fact-
I spend hours and hours on the topic.
I respect that. I respect
I'm
that. You
interested.
pull out your phone, you look up
You
some
have-
stuff, that's good.
I mean, I
I
show you exactly what I was saying.
это ты видишь,
A
типа,
certain something
люди
about this
дискутируют
war. When this
аргументами
war
всякими.
began,
А чё автобусы
actually,
состоят?
in
But you
2014,
understand that
Russia has perpetrated some sort of a quote-unquote referendum in Crimea. Now this referendum is very infamous because some towns voted 110, 115% to join Russia. They have famously allowed the Russian soldiers there to vote. They have famously allowed the Russian reporters who were there to vote. They have famously allowed the vote to progress at gunpoint. Now think about this for a second. You don't have to answer this question. Think about it. A country that does that kind of thing, really trust the elections that they have, with all the evidence pointing otherwise.
I don't trust the election like I don't.
You should not.
I don't trust the orange movement.
Now that is the problem, my friend. That is the problem. You're
Because
equating
what
things on opposite sides of the spectrum.
because the previous president was elected.
No, it was not. Let me speak to you about this topic, my friends. Let me. No.
I mean,
Okay, fine. Have a nice day.
If
Have a nice day.
you
To actually answer what
you
you said.
have a microphone, you talk over me. So
Okay.
My
what
friend,
can I do?
this is a
What can I do?
Ukrainian rally. I'm giving you the freedom to
Arrivederci.
ask the question you
You
want.
ask people to ask.
I am not-
questions.
listen,
Then
listen,
you
listen.
you ask the question to us.
My
Next time, come with microphone.
You need to understand one thing. You need to understand.
Next time, come to
No
microphone
other-
yourself.
Sorry, Vitaly, please. You need to understand one thing. You need to understand one thing above all.
And
You
you
need to
talk
understand-
over.
My friend, listen. You need to understand
Listen
this
to me.
thing above everything else.
You already showed me how much you want the conversation.
No other rally.
Listen to me.
No other rally
Listen
will
to me.
allow you.
Listen to me.
No
No.
other rally will allow you
Okay.
to interact
I'm sorry.
directly with the
I tried to
speaker.
have a conversation.
No other
Arrivederci.
rally will give you this luxury. We do this because we want to answer your questions. But the problem is, what you're doing now is called filibustering. You're filibustering the rally. I'm answering your question. You're denying that. Well, that's a good point, actually. But my friends, we will just ignore this situation for now on. But I will raise one of the points brought up about the so-called democratically elected president that was, he was overthrown
What is going
by
on?
those
It's a
evil
problem
Ukrainian
that
people in the
NATO-
Maidan. Let's talk about that. Viktor Yanukovych is his name. In Ukraine, known as Panikovich, because before he became president of Ukraine, he was actually in jail a couple of times. That's right. One of the times he was in jail
You've seen the
was
past,
for
and
stealing
obviously
hats
you
from
have
people.
a
So if you ever
better
see
way
Yanukovych,
to
the
get
people
into
with
the
hats, be
economy
careful with yours, my
or
friend.
the
Don't keep them unattended.
European.
The point is, my
economy.
friend,
That's it.
when Viktor Yushchenko won the election, it was actually after Yanukovych had won that same election.
Russia
So you might be
does
asking
not
yourself,
have the
why is it
the
that
right
Yushchenko became president?
to,
I'll tell you why.
uh,
Because Yanukovych was caught during
get
voter
towards
fraud.
its own
thus,
security. I
he
know
was
that you should be a free country.
from
Yeah.
the election.
We're free to
Now,
decide about
after
your
this
destiny and
qualification,
everything. I totally
any
understand
sane
and I
person,
agree
any
with
person in the
that.
country
But the thing
who just
is,
quit
just let me
politics.
finish one second.
But
One,
not
let me
Yanukovych.
let me finish
Yeah,
one
yeah.
second.
Russia's
Because
blood in
obviously,
Ukraine was
every
right.
time I try to talk,
And
there's someone
exactly the
talking.
point that this gentleman here made.
You know
about
what
corruption.
happened in
Well,
Cuba?
that corruption
Cuba.
was exacerbated
Yeah.
by Biden.
1960 something, okay?
Yeah.
They flood Ukraine with bribes every
Cuba
single time.
Mr.
Something happens, as they don't
When
want it to.
Russia tried to
Yanukovych
get
tried
closer
become
to
president
United
again.
States border,
And once
what happened?
again,
We
there was the
almost
same
nuked
kind
each
of
other.
evidence
Okay.
that there was voter
So
fraud going
Russia
on. But this
has
time,
the right
because of all the bribes,
to say,
there
look,
was no
there's been a
proper
court since
investigation into this
1989.
voter fraud.
Now it's good in Cuba.
NATO will
Yanukovych
not.
became
Situation in
president of
Cuba.
No,
Ukraine.
shit, of course. But wait a second. But why?
One of the
Why?
very
Why?
first things he
Because-
did
Because?
was completely
Because,
backpedal.
United
On all the
States
promises he made
are
to the
enforcing
Ukrainian
embargo to
people.
Cuba
Promises he
since
made
the beginning of time. I mean, who is pulling down Cuba? Is it Russia? Russia has nothing to do with Cuba
He
anymore.
backpedaled
Yeah,
them.
they
He
do.
went with some sort of a very vague and uncertain
Why you can be friends with America, Cuba and America? Why not friends?
Golden Mountains as usual.
For strong economy, why Cuba not friend for America?
Because America.
Of course, people were upset. People
Actually, it's easier for them to say, look, they are the communists, and they look at how they are. So they can keep having like the black sheep, the good example to say, look, they are the communists and they're sheep. But help them,
Know what he did?
help them.
He said,
Why Italy is still in NATO?
Huh?
You from Italy? Why you not do Italy go out from NATO? Why you still in NATO?
and to do whatever he could.
Why you need
But
NATO?
NATO has no meaning to exist in general.
In that case,
You need out from NATO.
The whole country was in an uproar.
No, NATO has a meaning, but has a meaning because it's a money machine. Because obviously, if you have an enemy, you can keep piling up weapons and spend money on the army.
Real bullets later. This is why the Ukrainians have this term, the heavenly hundred, which is in the name of the hundred of people who died during the Maidan Revolution. And my friends, make no mistake, this was all caused by Yanukovych because he refused to let people have it their way. He did not want Ukraine to go into Europe. He did not want Ukraine to have closer ties with the EU, where Ukraine always belonged. No, he wanted Ukraine to be a puppet of Russia because he himself was a puppet of Russia. In other words, my friends, these conversations are fruitful and they're important to have. And I remind you all that no rally in this world will fully give up its own time to just let random passersby speak throughout the whole day. So if you come here to ask a question, do not expect yourself to be given all of our time and to be able to use that time to filibuster about some random nonsense. I'm sorry, my friends, but this is not how it works. The way this works is the passersby are perfectly free to give us
Дон Хуан, а что случилось?
to ask us a couple of questions. We're not going to simply give up on our rally. Oh, let's let someone who fully supports Russia speak for 2 hours here. That's gonna be fun, isn't it? No, my friends, that's not gonna happen. That doesn't happen in any of these rallies. If you want to speak here at 10 Downing Street, you're free to do such, same as us. You have to book your own spot with the police, and you have to arrange for all of that. But for all the people who are passing by, please feel free to ask a couple of questions. We're always happy to answer them. Remember this, my friends. Do not try to occupy the whole time and then feel like, oh, I'm entitled to the microphone. Give me the microphone. Give me the stage. Give me everything. That's not how this works. I remember this guy with the red cap who came here a while ago. And the only thing he kept shouting was, give me the microphone, give me the microphone, give me the microphone. That's what that guy with the red cap was shouting. No, not this gentleman. This gentleman is better than that guy. That guy was actually rude and he tried to vandalize our equipment later. So that was a different individual from a different day.
Hello.
My point is, my friends, we're always happy to hear from the crowd.
We definitely have, we come from a different...
As the saying goes,
what I'm saying is, I don't think, in general, blame the United States for all this situation. I don't blame
America.
In general, I don't blame Ukraine.
Why do you blame America?
If nobody...
Because for the United States, it's way better to keep the
one of our main
going.
messages is always
Why
tell the world the real way of
the
dealing
world's
with
economy
Russia,
is
the
struggling,
real
right?
way
There's
of ending
inflation,
this war.
product world
Stop
trade.
the Russia terrorist
War is
regime.
bad for trade, right?
So which are
Ukraine with what's necessary.
the part of the
Finally
economy
win this war.
that never struggle in the
Fight the jets for Ukraine.
Fight the jets for Ukraine!
Fight the jets for Ukraine.
Fight the jets for Ukraine!
Fight the jets for Ukraine.
Fight the jets for Ukraine!
Air defense for Ukraine.
For Ukraine!
Air defense for Ukraine.
Air defense for Ukraine!
Air defense for Ukraine.
Air defense for Ukraine!
Long range missiles for Ukraine.
Срач в комментах, потому что сейчас только 20 минут я в онлайне. Люди не собрались. Ты можешь шер сделать, и больше придет людей. Долбоёб твой папа.
Let Ukraine strike back. Let Ukraine strike back. More sanctions on Russia.
Донфан, задай платный вопрос. $2, и мы его зачитаем и ответим тебе.
More sanctions on Russia.
So, I'm talking United States. Look what it's gonna do.
When you start talking about Russia?
One day, when it's gonna finish, okay.
Russia is
Who is
the
gonna
state.
reconstruct the Ukraine? Apart that you already loan your future to the West.
The world economy essentially trade will go into Ukraine, right?
Yeah, you know already what BlackRock will do.
It's why Ukraine wants to be part of the West, right? Because the West has money, there's fair trade, there's free movement of goods and
You're
services.
gonna be on that forever.
Look, you thinking because nobody touch your country.
Not in debt to Russia, but in debt to who?
You were not really in debt with Russia. You were trading with
When somebody touch your country, you start thinking different, no?
You have one rule for one.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть!
Afternoon, guys. It's really good to see that we got some new people here today. You guys like it? That's the question up here. Oh, do you? Go ahead, go ahead. What's your question?
No, I don't have questions. I know everything about this information.
О,
Oh, that's lovely. You know?
I agree for sure.
Georgian. Сакартвело.
Respect, respect, my friend. Respect. You know what? It is tragic that Ukrainians, Georgians, and many people who live as neighbors of Russia, always need to explain in detail all of these things because people just don't know. They don't understand the depth of the meaning of what it means to be a neighbor of Russia. They don't understand the meaning of having to live every single time with the possibility that one of these beautiful days, Russia's going to decide that the free world is not going to do anything about it and they're just going to invade you out of nothing. What are they going to do? They're going to say, oh, they're Nazis, oh, they're evil, oh, they hate us, oh, they're Russophobes. It doesn't matter. They will make things up. They will make something up and they will attract you. So, thank you for coming here today, my friends. We were protesting alongside the Georgian rally that happened a while ago. It was a march. Yeah. It was very good. Very good. I think it's very important for you guys to also speak up. If you like to say a few words, you can. If you like, yeah, go ahead, man.
Hello everybody. Slava Ukraine. I have many friends in Ukraine and before the war, I was really strong. Sometimes 3 times a year, we like the second home. Very crazy, what's happening now in Ukraine. And in 2008, we in Georgia we experienced same invasion from Russia. As soon as
Свинья твоя мама.
join European Union, NATO to secure future of your children for your country, Russia don't have second thoughts. They can make up some sort of dirty ideas and just invade you. Because if it's a conflict in your country, you cannot join European Union or NATO. It's difficult, So
Кидаю координаты. Лондон.
they want to
Центр.
do to make your life difficult, so no one wants you. So they just take you back, Soviet Union's, old times, So I want to wish you guys, strength. You guys are very
Таня,
strong
ты уже
people.
послала своего сына и
Dates
мужа
are there,
на
They
смерть?
plan in 3 days to, capture, Kiev, and look at you now. They still, same areas, pushing last 6 months, and they cannot, make any further, And also, this war, show Russia is not, second world army, as they claim, We've seen it, it's like a cartoon, And Ukrainian people show, so much
Орешник в жопе у
guts
тебя
and
застрял.
strength they have, You guys have reason to fight for it, and Russia don't have reason to fight. They just coming for an order, And you guys just protecting your family, your country, your land, and everything, So eventually, you guys will win. There's no question about this. I just wish you, power, stay strong.
Расследование уже закончилось.
Ideas, and everything will be fine. Slava Ukraine!
Героям слава!
Cheers.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Once again, my friends, we must not forget what happened in 2008 in Georgia. Invasion of Abkhazia and South Ossetia is very similar, eerily similar, in fact, to what the Russians did when they invaded the Donbass and then destabilized the situation there and when they annexed Crimea. That was the beginning. Those were the signs that things are going to get worse. If the world saw what happened in Georgia, if the world saw what happened in Donetsk and Luhansk, if the world saw even before all that, what the Russians did in Chechnya, none of this would have happened.
Because
But
the
alas,
majority of the people they will live in
they're forced to repeat
Вы каждый
the
день
same
убиваете
mistakes over and
украинцев
over again. Why?
в Одессе, и что?
Why do people not learn in time? Why do people not learn with their mistakes of the past? Thank you, my friends. Thank you very much. All the best. Why do people not learn with such things? I cannot
Ну ты же
say.
не воюешь.
It is difficult. It seems like humanity suffers amnesia every single time history rewinds itself. But we must fight against that amnesia, my friends. I remind
Задай
you
платный
what has
вопрос, я
happened in the
отвечу.
past. On that note, I'd like to speak about the interview of Lex Friedman with Zelensky. that happened
Задай
not too
платный
long ago,
вопрос,
2 days
и я
ago.
отвечу.
It was very interesting to watch. Now, Lex Friedman, he was, well, his questions were, let's just say, lacking. However, I am actually grateful and I'm happy that this interview happened, because the questions he was asking are the same questions that actually a lot of people are thinking about. Sure, to the people who know better, to the people who know the situation, they sound silly, they sound uninformed, they sound
Токарев,
almost
$2, и вопрос твой зачитают по микрофону.
have been manipulated by the Russian terrorist regime's propaganda. And we can't just discard these people automatically. We should speak to them. We should ask them what they think. You know, for all we know, a lot of the people who are passing by us could be a bunch of Lex Friedmans themselves. They could possibly think that Putin loves
Claudia,
his country
покинь
and
канал.
provides for his country. An absolutely laughable notion to us, to anyone who knows how much damage Putin did against his own country. Now we speak a lot about the damage he did against Ukraine because that's the absolute worst of his damage. The worst war crimes possible. That's what Putin did to Ukraine. Those are the worst of his actions. But it does not at all mean that he committed no crimes against the Russians. In fact, this is my personal opinion, my friend. Heroem Slava, thank you very much, my friend. Thank you. What a lovely gentleman. Now, my friends, this is my personal opinion. I'd like to share it with you in this matter. I believe that this war that Ukraine is fighting right now, this is not a war that Ukraine should be fighting in the first place. This is a war that the Russian people should be fighting with their own government. And for the future, I hope that that time will come when they will overthrow their government. It is questionable, considering the lack of grit they have shown, but it is a possibility for the future. Hopefully, after getting hammered by this war, after all losses, after all of the destruction, hopefully Putin regime gets discredited enough to finally warrant some kind of action from the Russians themselves. We must not forget also that the biggest ethnic minority in Russia are Ukrainians. Many are the children that they have stolen from Ukraine, trying to fix their collapsing demographics. Many are the people who Stalin and other terrorists like him forcefully relocated to Russia, to Russify them, to assimilate them in their disgusting culture. My friends, we must not forget about those people also. In the future, those people too need to be reminded of their origin. Those people too need to be reminded where they come from. That the Don Cossacks were just Zaporizhian Cossacks who moved to Don. They were not Russians, they were Ukrainians. That is what we have to remind people. Only when the Russian terrorist regime has completely collapsed and changed, given way to a new regime, only then will Ukraine be fully safe forever from any attacks from Russia. Right now, the best deterrent against Russia is NATO, by far. By far. I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that. However, it is also important for us to acknowledge the realities at hand. And I'm not going to start pushing some defeatism or that kind of thing, my friends. But it feels like Ukraine might have to give concessions to Russia. It is very painful for me to admit this. What we have to do now is to make absolute certain that Russia gives concessions to Ukraine also. The main thing that will prevent Russia from invading are Western troops in Ukraine. That is one of the main things we need to fight for. We need to achieve that. Ukraine will most likely not join NATO anytime soon. But if Ukraine has a presence of European and Western troops, that will certainly deter a Russia weakened by this war. Most certainly it will. That is one of the main things we should ask for. That is one of the main demands
Суджу вы уже потеряли навсегда.
of the free world. Now, Ukraine has a good amount of chips to bargain with. We have a part of the Kursk region, which is a big slap in the face of the Russian terrorist regime. Let's not forget about that. We have the sanctions, which the free world will only lift if Russia gives concessions. And just a few days ago, around a week ago, we have the gas to finally be able to use that in our favor as our bargaining chip in this negotiation. Now that Ukraine has stopped sending Russian gas to Europe, now Ukraine has more leverage to make sure that the Russian terrorist regime starts behaving itself, at least temporarily. The best hope, the best case scenario we have to hope for, my friends, in my opinion, is to get this deal done now, to make people stop dying, and so that this starts something in Russia. This awakens something in the many ethnic Ukrainians who live in Russia. This awakens something that the Russian terrorist regime, the Soviet terrorist regime, the Russian Empire have for such a long time tried to eliminate in the Russian people. The desire for freedom. That desire exists in every people in the world, in some less than in others, but it does exist to a certain extent in all of them. We must make sure that this war in Ukraine was not fought in vain, so that in the future no such wars need to be fought again. No such pointless bloodshed will have to be fought again. You see, this is the black humor of the situation, my friends. Our opposition also calls this war pointless, but they call it pointless for different reasons. Those fools claim, oh, you know, there's a proxy war by the USA, by BlackRock, by the Europeans, by the EU, by NATO. My friends, did the US invade Ukraine? Did NATO invade Ukraine? Did BlackRock invade Ukraine? It did not. It never happened. What happened is as follows. The Russian terrorist regime saw the inaction of the free world. They saw the limp-wristed rhetoric of NATO and the EU and the US. And they decided to take advantage of it. That is the critique we can send to NATO. That is the critique we can send to the EU and to the US for not doing enough to support Ukraine when Ukraine has given up so much to achieve world peace. When Ukraine has given up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world in exchange of nothing but a peace agreement. That is what we must remember. So my friends, everyone who comes here to support us deserves our respect. If their heart is in the right place, if their actions are in our support, we need to respect them. No matter where they're from, no matter who they are, no matter what their background. Of course, there's a possibility for traitors every single time. However, you must not be paranoid also. You must check who you're dealing with, and most importantly, check the information that we're looking into. The thing that hurts me the most, that tears my heart to pieces, is when I see Ukrainians believing in conspiracy theories pitched to them by the Russian terrorist regime. Make no mistakes, my friends. The Russian propaganda is devious. The Russian propaganda is clever. Not all of it will say Putin good, Ukraine bad. Not all of it. A lot of it will say, yeah, you know, Putin is not right, but the West is worse. Yeah, sure, Russia's not great, but Ukraine is a bunch of Nazis. That's what a lot of their propaganda will say. Only fools will think that if a piece of propaganda does not fully support Russia, it's not sponsored by Russia. We have seen it over and over again. The Russian bots They're not a mere meme. They're not just jokes. Prigozhin was the one who started this in St. Petersburg. They have opened a whole building, a whole bot farm. He started this business there. And I know it might sound funny for me to start talking about memes in a political discourse, but we must not underestimate the power of humor, the power of going down to the level of your average person. It's not a highbrow conversation. Do you think these memes show some kind of a developed political discourse? No. But we must understand that the vast majority of people will not know, will not understand the intrinsic complications of the political discourse that needs to be had nowadays. They won't get a long explanation, a long-winded explanation why Russia is wrong, Ukraine is right. But they will get a simple thing saying, why die for Danzig? Oh, excuse me, why die for Ukraine in this case? And I'm sure you, my friends, see what I'm talking about. Why die for Danzig is now alive once again. Fascists and communists are the ones who are pushing this idiocy. It is no surprise that when World War II began, every single socialist, communist, fascist, and Nazi party in the free world was fully and completely advocating non-interventionalism. Why might that be? Because, my friends, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union started World War II on the same side. That is not a platitude, an approximation, or just make-believe. That's a fact. They signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Treaty. They agreed to split Poland in half, and they attacked Poland together. That, my friends, is what we must remember. That the Soviet is always the friend of the Nazi, not the enemy. Unless, of course, they are the only dogs left in the same room when everyone else is dead. Then they will fight each other. You will notice that it was only when Hitler had no more opposition in continental Europe that he attacked the Soviet Union. That is not surprising at all. Of course, he would have preferred to attack Britain. He would have preferred actually to have Britain join him peacefully. He wanted to have the British Empire on his side. That's why he was trying very hard to convince the Chamberlains of this world to actually go for negotiations with him. And Chamberlain agreed, the fool. Now we have entire communities of Chamberlains nowadays, my friends, saying, oh, Putin will be reasonable, oh, Putin will be nice, he will be kind, he will be intelligent, he's a wise ruler, he loves his people. That's what Lex Friedman said, right? He told Zelensky that Putin cares about his people. Absolutely hilarious. Now, my friends, once again, I do not want to focus this rally on trash-talking Lex Friedman. He did a good move by inviting Zelensky to that interview. And I do find it useful that he was asking Zelensky questions that many people are thinking about. Although they are questions that show an uninformed person by nature. They are important questions to answer. This is what I say to all the people who sometimes are critical. When we, and me in particular, when we are interacting with our opposition. I believe interacting with the opposition is unbelievably important so that we know what they say, so that we know what they think and how they think, so that we can win this information war, so that we can show the world what really is going on in Ukraine, so that we can unite in the face of this great evil that we call the Russian terrorist regime. All together, we will win.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 World, wake up.
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 Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
No trade with Russia.
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 You know, my friends, one of the reasons why I'd like to discuss this is because this topic is actually quite interesting and popular to a lot of people to hear about. I'd like to speak about Trump for a little bit. Now, you know that a while ago I had a few skeptical discussions about Trump, but I have warmed up to an extent to his record. It has improved. It's not quite where it should be, I believe, but it has improved. So we must not look into a gifted horse's mouth. You know, or as another saying goes, a man stranded in the desert takes whatever water he's offered. Now, Trump has his own way of negotiation. And this is one of the things that gets him a lot of criticism. But I would like to actually kind of softcore defend him on this point. Although I'm not a huge fan of his, as you know that, my friends. But he does have this little tactic that sometimes works out. He starts negotiations from some extortionate demands, very often. And then, when negotiation starts, he starts haggling with the opposition. Sometimes, he actually gets a good deal. But the point he's trying to make, usually, with this extortionate beginning to the negotiations, is not to get exactly what he wants at the beginning, is to hear the opposition out. To hear how much they understand about this topic, to see how much he can actually get. He is at the end of the day a businessman. Now, he does have some cheeky allegations in terms of his businesses, but a businessman nonetheless. So in this regard, I believe that there is some good hope, that hopefully Trump is going to start negotiations with Russia from a position of strength.
Всех снести, но не можете. Импотенты у вас на полшестого.
He does understand it. He does understand, above all, that if he simply gives up on Ukraine, he will be seen as a loser. He will be seen as weak. And that's exactly the image that he's trying his best to avoid. It is important for us to know what are the likely outcomes of these negotiations. And it is important to all of us to know what we should expect to happen from these negotiations. What we should expect Trump to say. What we should expect Putin to reply. What we should expect Zelensky to suggest. What we should expect from all of these countries. Now, unfortunately, once again, we've had a little bit of a spat between Trump and Macron, apparently, when Trump has spoken about Alaska. I'm sure you, my friends, have heard of that. Not particularly Greenland, I'm sorry, not Alaska, my bad. Thank you, Yanis, thank you. Thanks for fixing me up. Alaska is what Russia speaks of. It was a little bit of a Freudian slip there, because it's in my mind, because this is what Russia always talks about. Oh, you know, Alaska is ours, Alaska is ours. Yeah, right. But my friends, about Greenland, Trump has started talking about, oh, you know, maybe he will annex Greenland and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know how serious he is about this conversation. It is unfortunate to see, but hopefully, and this is what I think, this is Trump kind of, you know, motivating his supporters into going in the election. I believe that he wants to set the bar quite high. So that at the end of the day, he can say that there were negotiations. And sure, not everything he spoke about happened, but at least he tried. I think that is the point of view. I don't know how to open umbrellas these days. Oh, thank you, Yanis. Thank you very much. I can't do it with the microphone at the same time. Apologize, my friends. But my friends, once again, I'd like to thank you all for coming here to the rally. I'd like to remind you all that our rallies happen here on Wednesdays at 6, on Fridays at 6, on Sundays at 3. And I'd like to remind you all that everyone is welcome at our rallies. Everyone who wants to join us in this cause and add their voice to ours, or ask something to us, perhaps, like you, for example, my friends. Would you like to ask a question today?
Yes.
Yeah, any of you. Don't worry about it, guys. Don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot. If you don't want to ask anything, that's fine. But then you'd like to ask people, if they would like to ask us something, especially new people who are passing by. It's important to hear the opinions of the people. Would you like to add something? No? That's fine. No problem, no problem. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Sometimes we get some very good feedback from people, so I like to ask people about their opinions on this topic. You know, today we had a funny gentleman who came to us telling us about how Zelensky passed a law that they do
This
not
is London City, bro.
I'm not sure how someone can actually interpret it that way, considering that Zelensky already said that he's going to negotiate soon. When Trump becomes president, there are going to be negotiations. But, my friends, we have to tell people, we have to inform people, everyone, that these negotiations must not go the same way as the two Minsk agreements. This must not be a new Minsk agreement. This must not be a new Budapest memorandum or a new Russia-Ukraine friendship treaty. This must not be a repetition, a repeat of history. This needs to be something new. A treaty in which there will be assurances for Ukraine. A treaty in which Ukraine will be able to finally have some safety, some security.
Орг 13, тебе что, завидно, что у тебя дома такого нет?
If you have the time, if you want to, don't worry about it. But my friends, one of the most important things for us to say is what would be the best solution. Now the best solution is not always the most realistic solution. That is what we should strive for. That is what we should always aim for. And the best solution for this war is unquestionably Ukraine joining NATO. That is what should have happened long ago. That is the only thing that would have prevented Russia from attacking Ukraine at all. But alas, the many voices of appeasement have prevailed back then. We only have to hope that they do not prevail when it counts in the future. Ukraine in NATO!
In NATO!
Ukraine 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 in NATO!
That would be the best case scenario at the moment, my friends. That would be the only thing that would 100% prevent Russia from invading Ukraine in the future. Why do people think that Finland and Sweden decided to all of a sudden scrap the ideas of neutrality they've been practicing for decades before that and simply join NATO immediately after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine? Personally, my friends, I am surprised they did not try to join NATO when Ukraine was first invaded in 2014. I am a bit surprised by that, but alas, I guess like most of the world, they did not take that invasion seriously enough. Big mistake. Russia was testing the waters. Russia was checking whether or not there would be consequences for invading a sovereign state. They did that in Georgia.
No, Francisco, you need donate
Ukraine in 2014.
$2 and we answer to your questions.
In the full-scale invasion. But we all know very well at this point that has caused countless death and endless suffering. And that, my friends, is something we should always remember. So in the name of those who have died, in the name of those who have suffered, in the name of those who are dying and suffering now as we speak, and this war started escalated, and overall caused by the Russian terrorist regime, I'd like to invite you all, my friends, to do a minute of silence.
Героям слава!
As I usually say, my friends, memory, history, is one of the things that distinguishes us from the people who walk this world. The ability to learn without mistakes, the ability to improve for the future generations, to have a better life than we did, to have better possibilities than we did. Scrap the selfishness of hedonism in the immediate tomorrow is to have a better future as a species, my friends. We believe that Ukraine did one of the greatest steps to achieve that improvement for humanity. By giving up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, Ukraine has made a serious step towards world peace. That step has been insulted and abused by the Russian terrorist regime with their unlawful invasion of Ukraine, unjustifiable by any metric. That, my friends, is what we should always remember. Ukraine chose peace. Ukraine demilitarized. Ukraine showed goodwill. Russia showed treachery. Russia showed psychopath tendencies. Russia showed ruthlessness and genocide to the rest of the world. To achieve its own goals, to achieve the goals of its corrupt leadership. And this is what truly shocks me. You know, the gentleman who came here today a while ago was arguing with us for a little bit. He said, oh, you know, Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. What an interesting statement to make. As most of those tests, most of those statistics were taken during Yanukovych's rule. And Yanukovych, as we all know, was a Russian puppet. What a surprise that all of the countries that have a Russian puppet ruling them are the most corrupt countries in Europe. Well, my friends, it's not surprising at all. We should in fact expect that as a certainty. Every single time Russia is in power, they spread their corruption. Everything they touch turns into dust. I'm sure you've all heard of King Midas, whose touch turned things into gold. Russia is different in that regard. Russia turns everything it touches worthless. And of course, my friends, that is why we need to make sure that Russia does not touch any more countries, besides the ones they have already ruined, besides the ones they have already scarred. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
And now, my friends, we're going to have another short musical break.
Buenas noches.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
I would like to say a couple of words just help Pavlo a little bit, because I know the marathon of 2 hours talking is not an easy feat. I'd like to speak a little bit about sanctions, and this is one of the reasons why we are here, and one of the reasons why this war continues for so long. The West could have applied a lot of more sanctions a lot earlier, and even now there is a lot of potential of what is possible to do with them. I've already referred a little bit to this long interview by Volodymyr Zelensky to the podcast of Ed Freeman, and one of the bits in that was Zelensky's thoughts of how a wave of sanctions could have maybe stopped the full-scale invasion from happening if the West, the collective West, applied these sanctions before the actual invasion, not talk about it, what will happen if Putin invades, but actually slam those much, months before, when it was clear that Russia is already amassing its hundreds of thousands of forces near the borders of Ukraine in November, December, even earlier of 2021. It was clear, that it's not just some sort of a military sanctions applied in advance that could have crippled Putin's plans, at least, or change them. This was not done. Well, it's better late than never. Right now, one of the strong instruments the collective West has, and EU maybe, or some other countries which are not militarily super strong, they do have this economic muscle. In many wars during the last centuries, it was always the case that economically stronger power or alliance is ultimately winning against the weaker one. In this case, if we take Europe alone, EU plus UK plus several countries which are not in the EU, like Norway or other countries which are allies of Ukraine, if we take their joint GDP and compare it with Russia's GDP, the difference is tenfold. Europe's muscle is 10 times stronger than Russia's. Hence, it really has a lot of economic instruments to apply and to really squeeze Russia. Has it done it? It has, but it was just incremental, very lethargic, very slow, and it's very reactive. I hope really that in this year, 2025, is going to be much more proactive attitude of the European nations. And it's difficult to be optimistic after so many months of this war, as Jan is putting it, today is day 1050, but there are some causes for optimism. First of all, inside the EU, the presidency, the rotational presidency of the club is now in Poland's hands. So Donald Tusk and all his cabinet, and also President Andrzej Duda, they are very strong supporters of Ukraine, and they are very, very realistic about the threat of Russia, and also about these economic instruments which Europe can use, and indeed must use. So under Tusk's leadership, Poland can set up the agenda for the talks of the European leaders, and part of this could be exactly about the efficacy of sanctions and which new sanctions could be applied. There is one area where broadly right now we're seeing an agreement emerging amongst all the nations of the EU, especially those who are near the Baltic Sea. So we are talking Poland, Germany, all the Scandinavians, and all the Baltic states. And this is that what Russia does with its hybrid actions in that sea is no longer on. It cannot be allowed that Russia hires this shadow fleet, very often, Chinese old tankers, to transport its oil from Russia into the global market, mainly to India and some other places. But at the same time, many of these tankers have spy equipment, and then they do this hybrid activity of dragging their anchors, ripping the communications cables between the Scandinavia and the Baltic states, or electricity cables or internet cables. This is actually hybrid activity which 5 or 6 or 7 years ago could have triggered Article 5 of NATO, because this activity is clearly linked with the military aims of Russia. Right now, the reaction has been so far pretty weak, but this is where changes could be coming, and the much stricter sanctions against the Russian shadow fleet and against these kind of actions. Actually, a good example was done already by Finland, one of the steadfast supporters of Ukraine and one of the newest NATO members. So what Finland
Богдан, мочи свиней.
is, one of those tankers has cut the cables, the electricity cables. It actually, the military ships of Finland have stopped that ship, have impounded it, have gained access to the ship, found a lot of Russian spying equipment or equipment which has nothing to do with the maritime commercial shipping, and we will see if it's going to be costly for Russia to get the ship back. It's going to be a good example, especially if we see something similar repeating once and twice and the third times, because Russia has been always, trying to find for the loopholes, and one of the loopholes was
Максим, мочи
in
хряков.
the international waters. There is this maritime law regulated by International Maritime Organization, which allows, the commercial shipping. Well, what Russia is doing is anything but commercial, because it's involved in those hybrid attacks, and those attacks just cannot continue. So more sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
Then there is one more thing which the West was very timid, and I really hope in 2025 big change is coming, and that's about confiscation of Russian assets. We were, chanting here for many months to freeze Russian assets. Well, they have been frozen for quite a while. Right now is the time to confiscate them. One of the suggestions done by Volodymyr Zelensky in that interview a couple of days ago was that those $300 billion which are right now frozen in the Western central banks, in Brussels, in London, in Washington, this money should be used by Ukraine, should be given to Ukraine. This money should be used by Ukraine however it wants, but Zelensky offered a good deal for Trump, and Trump is a transactional businessman, so big chances he will take that deal, is that these $300 billion of Russian dollars should be used to buy American guns for Ukraine. So Ukraine buys American guns, those guns, promote peace through strength in Ukraine. At the same time, US and Trump is happy with this $300 billion of Russian money. In this way, Putin will clearly see that he's losing this money. It's not going to come back. It's not going to be, somehow, after the peace agreement or anything, somehow it will be returned to Russia. No, that money will be already gone. And if he wants to litigate and if he wants to try and get it back, well, he will have to do it directly with Washington and not with Ukraine. So this is one of the things. It's possible to do it. For 2 years and a bit, for nearly 3 years, the collective West has been too timid about doing this kind of confiscation, because one of the arguments by those who doubted if that could be done is that at the same, you know, if you do it, then some other nation, let's say China or Brazil or anyone, can confiscate the Western assets in that country and just, you know, freeze them, and the Westerners, the Western investors will lose it. Well, we are talking about confiscation just of the money, and it has already been frozen. So if at the same time, if it's a sort of a concerted action simultaneously done in Washington, in London, in Brussels, that these Russian, you know, 300 billion are confiscated. If that's done at the same time, it's very unlikely that any of the countries, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or China or any Latin American or Asian country, will be, you know, rushing and taking the assets away from the central banks from the Federal Reserve in the US, or the Central Bank of England, you know, Bank of England, or the European banks. They still know the dollar, pound, or euro are the most secure currencies to keep its reserve. So nothing like that will happen. So it's time to be proactive for the Europeans. There is a movement actually here in this country. There are politicians from all the parties, from the Conservatives, from Labour and Liberal Democrats, and also SNP, which just a couple of days ago, I think it was on Monday, they started the discussions in the House of Parliament. There was a parliamentary question asked about this, about the confiscation of assets. Of course, British politicians can only decide what is done with the money which is frozen here in London, but we're talking still quite a big amount of cash. We're talking over $25 billion, which are Russian money, Putin's money, which are here in London. Well, what have they been doing for the last nearly 3 years? Absolutely nothing. It's high time it becomes Ukraine's money, and if Ukraine decides it needs to spend it on guns, so be it. That should be done, and Kyiv should have control of that money. So once again, I would like to say that, you know, economy in this 21st century is the crucial bit in any military conflict, and we Europeans, together, of course, with our allies in when we say collective West, we think about countries which actually not in the West, like New Zealand or Australia or South Korea or Japan, but we have been too timid, too cowardly even to apply the strength, the muscle, which is economic muscle, against Russia. You know, it has been looking for the ways to circumnavigate the sanctions. This should not be allowed after nearly 3 years of war. So wherever we see that there are loopholes, those should be closed, and the big decision must be taken of confiscating Russian money. So more sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
Okay, thank you very much, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!
Vitas here. Thank you, Vitas. Thank you, Vitas. Thank you very much for that. Oh, yeah, of course, Jan. Go ahead. You can say a few words.
I just want to say real quickly about what Vita was saying about the frozen Russian assets. Well, there was a report came out a few months ago that it would be illegal for the UK government to give those Russian assets to Ukraine. So I am in discussion with some MPs about this. I spoke with Ian Smith, the former Secretary of State for DWP, and he said to me that he's going to push for discussions on this in the House of Commons to maybe bring a vote, hopefully, to see whether MPs can overrule this. But if this is true, and it may be so that we that the High Court might say, or the Supreme Court, that we can't do this, then what does that say for international law? Because Russia has violated every single international law throughout the UN Charter. Every single one has been violated. So in my opinion, if this is the rules that the UK cannot give Russian assets to Ukraine, then I think we should just go ahead and do it. Because Russia has violated international law. And it's not like the UK would be violating every single UN charter like Russia has done. And I do think those assets should be given to Ukraine to rebuild Ukraine and to rebuild the houses, all the infrastructure that Russia has destroyed. And if not, then Russia should be paying. Russia should pay for that. I don't see any alternative. Russia is responsible. Russia
We support
has to
Israel.
take the consequences for this war that they started. And regarding security guarantees to Ukraine, well, I did come up with a suggestion that if Ukraine has to concede territory to Russia, which it may have to, then the territory that doesn't get conceded to Russia should come under NATO control umbrella. That may not be the Ukraine membership of NATO, but it will mean that NATO will guarantee security to Ukraine without being a full member. So this is a discussion that I want to bring about with MPs to see if we can somehow do this. I see it could be a possibility, or individual countries can come together and provide security guarantees to Ukraine. So it might not be all of the NATO countries, but it could mean like Germany, maybe France, maybe the UK, maybe the US can bring about their own agreement for Ukraine and say, right, we will defend you. Because there are some countries that do not want Ukraine to become part of NATO, Hungary being one of them, with Viktor Orban, and probably Slovakia with Robert Fico. And some of you know Robert Fico has been to Russia recently and shook hands with Putin. Yes, he did. And he said that there will be consequences for Ukraine if they stop the flow of Russian gas. And they could even actually cut electricity to Ukraine. And even saying that Ukrainian refugees that are in Slovakia will have to leave. And I was reading reports on this, and I just think this is ludicrous. To blame innocent civilians of Ukrainian refugees in Slovakia, to say, right, no, you are responsible for the flow of the Russian gas coming to our country, then you're not welcome here. That is absolutely unacceptable. So they have to be held accountable. And I think Robert Fico has to be held responsible for his own actions that he has took. And it's very sad to see this happening, the fact that he went and shook hands with Putin. I mean, to me this is absolutely disgusting. And seeing what I saw over Christmas, the bombings of the missile attacks on Ukraine, seeing young children in bomb shelters, in underground stations celebrating Christmas, that to me was really sad, because I remember as a kid getting loads of Christmas presents under the Christmas tree, and we should be opening gifts at Christmas, not hiding in bomb shelters, enjoying Christmas dinner. I mean, most of you, I think, had Christmas dinner over Christmas. I think most of you would have done. And seeing Ukrainian children having food in bomb shelters, that was really sad. And I actually did say to my mom, if only we could send or bring Ukrainians here and have the food that we have, people would be more than happy to share the food that we have. Like, to see so much food, I mean, we wasted a lot of food, and seeing Ukrainians having none, it was sad. But there was an attack on the churches as well, and the Orthodox churches. We saw, I believe it was St. Nicholas Church, I think it was the name, that was blown up.
The patron saint of Christmas.
The patron saint of Christmas, yes, and this is celebrated in many cultures. My own Greek culture, in fact, we celebrate this patron. But I will speak about more when I get this report about the frozen Russian assets, whether this report actually does state that it's illegal. But I really think that we have to bypass this if it is, because Russia has caused so much damage to Ukraine, and Ukraine has to be rebuilt. So someone has to foot the bill. So Russia is responsible, and Russia should foot the bill. That's my opinion. Thank you all, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Yanis. You know, my friends, such actions may sometimes fall under the radar, but they are very important. We need to pressure politicians and remind them that to get our vote, they need to do something about the situation. And we just don't just say vaguely do something. We can tell them exactly what needs to be done. Russia needs to be recognized as a terrorist state. There need to be placed more sanctions on Russia. And as Yanis has said, and as many other people have said before, we need to be enabled to confiscate the many Russian assets of Russian blood money, to pay for this war that they have started, to pay to rebuild Ukraine after the war has ended. Now, we hear this argument being thrown around freely. Oh, you know, we're confiscating Russian assets. That's illegal. That's a violation of international law. So first things first, yes, because Russia itself cares so much about international law, so surely we should apply the same laws they violate to them, surely. That makes a lot of sense to me, it doesn't. I'm being sarcastic, of course, my friends. But most importantly, I think it's important to establish a metaphor between this situation and something that actually happens in real life that the vast majority of people have no problems against. All of you, my friends, I'm sure, you know the term sleeper agent. Usually it's a term that gets used when a policeman goes inside of a cartel, of a criminal organization, and cooperates with them from within, feeding information to the police force, and then striking when the moment is right, trying to completely destroy the cartel from within in a one fell swoop. That, at least in theory, is what a sleeper agent should be. And on the process of being a sleeper agent, these police officers actually have to commit crimes. They actually have to cooperate with the cartel. And they know it's wrong. They know it's a crime. They know it's violating the law. But they do it to catch the whole cartel and to end the whole injustice from happening. That, my friends, is the best example that can be compared to this situation. Is confiscating Russian funds, Russian money of the Russian oligarchs who support the war, who support Putin's terrorist regime, is that going to go against the law? Yes. But my friends, it is to prevent a greater injustice from happening. At the end of the day, it is the same situation as with the sleeper agent. Some small sacrifices need to be taken in order to prevent lives from being lost, in order to prevent the Russian terrorist regime from killing more people. They violate international law, left, right, and center. But they expect the rest of the world to apply the same laws they violate to them? What kind of nonsense is that? My friends, we need to think realistically. And I will establish another metaphor. If the one about the sleeper agent in a cartel is not enough, this one is much simpler. Imagine a man with a knife jumps at you and tries to slice your throat, to kill you on the spot, butcher you like a pig. Imagine that situation. Imagine you struggle and you fight him, and you wrestle the knife and you end up killing the man because your life was at risk. I do not believe that a person put in a situation like that can be held accountable for murder. I believe that that was complete self-defense. Sure, you killed him, but that was only because he was trying to kill you. My friends, we can't have this idiotic standpoint. Oh, you know, if you kill the guy who's trying to kill you, you're no better than he is. This is stupid. This is childish. This is idiotic. We can't commit ourselves to such self-destructive ideas. If someone is coming to kill you, you kill them before they finish you off. It's as simple as that. You can't be holding back enough. Oh, you know, I don't want to kill you. I'm going to try to save your life. No. No. When someone is coming with a knife for your life, they have made up their choice, and you must make your choice also, or else your conviction is going to be less than their conviction to kill you. And then you will be the one who dies. And then injustice survives, and that psychopath who has butchered you is going to go for someone else next. That, my friend, is the mentality we need to apply to Russia, to put the Russian terrorist regime down for good. And then we will have negotiations, fair negotiations. Alas, the world is an unfair place. So we might have to negotiate before the Russian terrorist regime is fully held accountable for the myriad of their crimes. If that happens, my friends, everybody in this world needs to remember the sacrifice that the Ukrainian people have done for world peace, giving up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, signing treaties with your enemy, trading land for peace multiple times. And at the end of the day, Russia always betrayed us. Russia always betrayed you. Every single one of you, my friends, every single person who lives and contributes to this great country has been betrayed by Russia, as they have promised peace and they have given war. That is always what they will do, as long as they feel stronger. Russia has no borders, Putin says, and he repeats that over and over again. They will expand, they will push until they are pushed back, until they are put in their place for good. If that does not happen, we're all doomed. Ukraine, the UK, Germany, France, doesn't matter. All of these countries will lose a 1 versus 1 war against Russia. Now, Russia is no global superpower, as has been mentioned before. They are a mere shadow of their former self. But Russia does have a lot of people. And a lot of people in Putin's eyes means a lot of cannon fodder, a lot of meat to throw at their enemies. And they don't need to have a political agreement to make decisions. All they need is their bunker grandpa to decide something, and they'll do it. Because who will oppose it? Russia is an autocracy, my friends. Now, the funny individual who came to us today, personally, I believe that he represents everything wrong with politics nowadays. The most important issue, the most important folly committed by people who talk about politics is to believe that everyone is the same. I would like to establish a metaphor about that. A metaphor of thieves. Many different kinds of thieves, you know. The word thief can mean a lot of things. It can be a thief of ideas, a thief of property, a thief of a girlfriend, of a boyfriend, perhaps. You could call that a thief. But my friend, a thief is a thief. And yet we must not equate different kinds of thieves. There's a big difference of being a thief because in primary school you stole some candy from another kid, and on the other hand, stealing all day, every day on the street, being a pickpocket. And there is also a difference between being a pickpocket on the streets and scamming millions of people worldwide and turning them into homeless people because you stole all their money. There is also a difference there. So yes, of course, all of these three different people I just mentioned, they are thieves, of course. But my friends, we can never equate the kind of thief they are. We can never give them the same punishment. A kid who stole some candy from another kid, all the punishment you need for him is a few harsh words or a few minutes in the corner. A thief who steals on the street may need a few years in the slammer. A thief who has ruined the lives of millions, he may have to stay there for his whole life. That, my friends, is justice. For each crime, an appropriate punishment. That is how we move forward as a species. That is why I always feel a very strong sense of cringe when people come to me and say, oh, you know, all the politicians are liars, all the politicians are thieves. My friends, there's a difference between promising a bit too much and not delivering everything you gave your people, and completely robbing your people of all of their human rights. Turning them into meat, turning them into animals. There's a big difference there, I'm sure you agree with that. That is why it always cringes me when people say, oh, you know, Putin, Keir Starmer, Trump, they're all the same. It's all the same politics. All politics is a lie. Idiotic. The stupidest point anyone could make about politics is to say they're all the same. And the worst thing is, it's such a popular point nowadays. So many people say this. Although it's so stupid, although it's not true, although it's easily debunkable, people feel comfortable saying this out loud with a straight face. My friends, we need to be better than that. We cannot equate politics. We cannot say, oh, all politics is the same. Yeah, I'm sure the United Kingdom is the same as North Korea now. I'm sure that's true. But according to certain conspiracy theorists, it is. We must be better than that. Never fall for the Russian propaganda. Never fall for the Russian misinformation. Never fall for the folly of depolitization. Because if you are depoliticized, your power of voting, your main advantage of living in the democratic world gets scrapped, just like that. And you know what's funny? If you are depoliticized, whatever country you live in doesn't even need to put their boot on your throat. You will choke yourself to death with that kind of ignorance. That is the terrible part of this trend of depolitization. It is the noose slowly tightening around the throat of the free world. And unfortunately, not everyone notices it. Just like the metaphor of the frog in the pot. If a frog gets put in a pot of cold water and it gets warmed up, it will cook alive. Although, if it gets put in a pot with boiling water, it will jump out. This metaphor, my friends, is true. We must make sure that we are not frogs or pigs or sheep, but people who decide for themselves, who stay informed, and who remain human via their decisions. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
And now, my friends, we're going to end this rally as we started it with the Ukrainian anthem.
Богдан, мочи свиней!
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженькі, як роса на сонці, запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу. Що ми, браття козацького роду. покажем за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Стоп! Смерть! Смерть!
Дякую.
Максим, мочи свиней.
Я народився. Ну, я ж народився в Донецькій області.
Ні, там не було школи.
Але тут я без проблем став розмовляти. Хоча я в школі вчив нормально.
Каже американець супер, але насправді мама заводить дитину до української школи, але коли вона зустрічає, він каже, здравствуй, сонечко, все в порядку, але дитина народжена вже 5, навіть після
Це коньбан. Наталя, що за мультики?
І тому вони, ці люди, вони якось чомусь приречені дітей на ту саму долю, що отримав у них. Наприклад, я народжена в Українському Союзі, я народилася в 80-му році, я була піонером. Моя бабуся була директором школи, я ненавиділа цей червоний галстук, але я його носила, забувала, дзвонила мене додому, щоб забрати цей галстук.
Моя мама 77-го року народила.
Але послухай мене уважно, що я хотіла сказати. Ці батьки, які тут у нас АТО, у нас 15 років, вони дай, про дітей російською мовою, політичною мовою.
Я навіть знаю тих, хто зрадив.
А що робити з такими людьми?
Хто перейшов на сторону Росії.
Я думаю, що їх треба забрати на Майдан. Ще. Якщо ти,
Але як це підтримує Україну? Як це підтримує цей союз?
вона каже, а для цього мені дитині, яка приймає Україну,
Російська
що ти для мене зробила Україна? Питання, що ти зробила для України?
Чекай, по-російськи розмовляють і кажуть, що це не українська. Що вона тут робить?
Тому я би, наприклад, була б моя воля, то
Ні, хочете Британія українського.
Як це сприяє?
А що російського?
вона приїхала в Україну, вона лічна, вона ображена.
Мені так удобно.
Так простіше, так легше, розумієш?
Ні, ну Наталя, я з Західної України. Я таке дуже
Ну, дивися, дуже багато викладають, що дуже добре, що ви з Західної України, і дуже добре бути патріотом, коли ти знаєш українську мову. Так, йок вашу мать, ви незалежні уже з 91-го року? Вся Україна незалежна. Вся Україна. Що вам заважало? У вас не працюють щелепи, у вас не працює мозок. Що у вас не працює?
Скажу, що Наталя, москалі, вони весь час пробують зробити так, що російська це мова, а українська це для синяків. Вони завжди ці
Слухай, нам
навіть повністю Київ. Вони весь час не страдять, зірки ці всі наші. А російські співали, щоб діти повторювали за ними.
А Ліза,
Львів завжди. Промагали місті проливали. То, мабуть, вона на Франківську. Я навіть не уявити не можу.
Вони переїхали, вони там
Біженці багато, але я
їм там все подобається, а на російську мову у них дітей не розмовляється, тому що це вже
Мне так удобно, если заходит до меня.
ну, звичайно, дуже для того, що вони привикли їм легше там говорити, я, наприклад, не розумію. І це не то, що там захід, не то, що ми там бандерівці.
Питання принципу.
Це є питання
Захист
вибору
культури,
кожної
захист мови.
людини, особисто кожної людини. За що я від sorry. I'm sorry. Дивіться, якщо ми підтримуємося цієї мови, якщо ми її не будемо захищати, якщо ми не будемо захищати якісь наші традиції, ми пропадемо. Це те, що хочуть москалі. І ми не будемо одягати, кажуть, там ви одягаєте вишиванку, то означає, що ви так. Ні, не про мова. Це мова про те, що ми одягаємо вишиванки, бо ми хочемо їх дати дітям, а діти нашим дітям.
Звичайно, в Україні була російська політика. Якщо так подумати. А скільки ж було агентів КГБ? А скільки є досі? Але насправді є досі такі провокатори. Нас вони казачі.
І просрали всі, які не зрозуміли, які тут І потім захищати російську мову, населення, розумієте, це разом.
Так, як вони були, так і
І
російські мови
сказати, я
існують.
захищаю російські мови, Донецьк, Луганськ, Запоріжжя, Херсон. І це люди, які зберегли російську мову. І з 91-го року вчили українську,
I'm not here the next 2 Sundays, but next is the last Sunday of the month I'll be here. Oh, just like that. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. They're waterproof.
А за що це у вас тут почалася ця розмова?
Ні, ми просто поздоровили один одного з Новим роком і почали за російською.
З Новим роком, Наталя! До речі, російською розмовляти не добре.
Добре, як мені казати? Прийдешнім роком.
Ще багато служить.
Я з одного боку, я не згоден, наприклад, там точкою зору Фаріонська, що каже, що всі, що розмовляють російською на фронті, то не українці. Я думаю, вони довели свою гідність іншим.
Дивися, Павло, це вигнані слова з контексту. Фаріон вже немає, нехай спочиває з Богом. Але ми втратили дійсно дуже багато.
Я з тобою згоден. Я взагалі за це не знаю, що російська мова вже тут дуже довгий час. Щоразу, коли велика частина популяції розмовляє по-російськи, це одна з їхніх причин. Завжди. О, вони розмовляють по-російськи, все, ми йдемо їх захищати ролі.
І що вони зараз захищають?
Це небезпечно.
От сьогодні ми були в Запоріжжі, пам'ятаєте людей? Вони розмовляли російською мовою, успішно і впевнено. Вони жили в місті, де розмовляли. Вони ніхто не знає, що. Розумієш?
Насрати на тих, що розмовляють російською, вони шукають причини, щоб напасти.
Але це не виправдання, щоб ми не ставали краще і не ставали на своєму місці, де ми маємо бути, де були наші гетьмани, козаки, вернутися до історії, звідки ми...
Пам'ятаєте, я тобі найбільше скажу, це питання міністра образування, питання безпеки.
І, до речі, наступного покоління.
Я до це сьогодні говорив.
Міністр образування, як він був в Україні, і що він так зараз каже. Зараз в Москві міністр образування України і каже, треба знищити Україну. І Ющенко, Янукович. Зараз 100% треба чекати 15-20 років. В Uno играем? Окей.
До свидания.
4? А хто ще йде? 1, 2, 3. You going? You play Uno? Yeah, none. Okay, let's go.
Jan might be joining, Liam might be joining. You're still up.
190. Здорово, Яблана. Бандеровцы, хотите заглотить? Тогда скажите ваши. Павло.
Тримай.
Та я бачу, що троль.
Йдемо зараз, за пару секунд йдемо.
Ти вже курив безпартія?
З ватниками поспілкуєшся?
Що, з ким?
Ватниками.
Ватниками. А гроші платіть, ватники, сволота. Тоді буду відповідати на питання.
Італія, хто він був? Не молдаван?
Хто?
Італіянець?
Той, що тут був, з Італії, так.
Італіянець.
Він з Італії, каже.
Підніми.
Та що ти? Я не розумію, як це.
Італіянець.
Треба було так, ну ладно, все, нічого не кажу. Ні, класична думка, що Україна корумпована, уся влада так сама.
корумпована?
Боже, та скрізь корупція.
В Уно играешь?
Культурна корупція є.
Идешь с нами?
Не бери сам.
Ну, думаю, можно.
Давай. Может, будешь хуже, чем я. Я ищу такого. Я самый слабый игрок.
Ну, на самом деле не сложная игра.
Ну там правила надо запомнить.
Там много ума не надо.
Много хуйни там.
Ну, блядь.
А народ пишет, потужно пишет. Что, Виталик, какой Виталик? Фу, мусора столько, в говне стоят позорища. Как раз такие хлопцы нужны в ВСУ. Возьмите в ход подъемники,
Да, блядь, сами вы в говне стоите.
Героям слава. Так, Русня, если вы хотите очень тут потужно написать, 2 фунта, и мы задаем вопрос Павлу, и он отвечает вам лично. 2 фунта на бочку. Слава ЗСУ. Мой коммент пропустил. Денежку, донат скидывай. Хохлам. Хоть на сайт назад не скажет.
Ну, Виталий, 2 фунта.
Слушай, тут у тебя
А в России вы, блядь, бомжи.
А?
не первый раз ходят, я смотрю.
Ну да. А, Богдан, да, Слава. Богдан, мочи свиней. Еще жрать нечего, идите.
Слава, ты цикади воюющий в тыл. Что, жрать нечего?
Все, до побачення. До побачення, Наталка. Донаты только на передовой. Не, за донаты самые топовые вопросы за донаты. Отвечаем так.
Bro, you gotta tell me when it gets this bad, man. You gotta tell
Так, еще 5 минут, и мы скидываем вас в воду. Улицы в Сраче. Улицы почище, чем у тебя дома, братишка.
Срач у тебя в голове.
Военники возьмите. Герои.
А ты давай залейся водкой.
А що ви там поспорили? Що ви там
Z.
поспорили з
Наталка?
За що?
Ну, Наталка каже, паспорта забирати, то...
За російську мову. Ні, ну ти знаєш мою думку.
Аж
Я
пошли в жопу.
якби не дурію на голову, коли люди по-російськи говорять, але я завжди перепрошую.
А я її не знаю, бо я сам розмовляю.
Прошайки, гнилая раша. Прошайки. За 2 фунта, кто скинет, сможет написать вопрос Павлу. Павло здесь рядом, он ответит вам лично. Так.
А ти нагадуй їм, щоб платили сволочі. Дивися, вони хочуть боти питання задавати, а платити за питання не хочуть.
Зет зомбі!
Плати за запитання, ми відповімо, сука.
Так.
Дивися.
А Павло тут, вот он Павло.
Привет.
И он ответит на любой вопрос за донатик. 2 фунта.
Ну.
Раскошеливайтесь, если вы такие богатые.
Цыки, вот вы позорище. ТК. Улицы чистые, не видели. Ротик за донатик. Нахуй этот бомж нужен. Поехали с Украины. МММ, борщ это вкусно. Украина проиграет. Государство исчезнет. Ну это ты 1000 дней назад писал, что проиграет и никак не проиграла. Все тут. Я не знаю, хто це. Україна переможе. Богдан, мочи свиней!
Ага, гляди, не обмочи свиней.
Особенно украинский борщец. Бандеровщина вонючая. Скажи Павлу, меньше матів, нехай культурно. Здоров, давай я тебе 100. Вот так все идет. За 2 фунта, вы как бомжи. Так ты скинь 2 фунта. Покажи, что ты не бомж. Я Богдан. За 2 фунта.
Докажи, что твоя страна не бомж.
Героям слава. День приколов. День приколов. Ты уже 2 часа здесь в этом, в онлайне. А денежку не скинул. Бандера это сила. Что за девчина?
С Украины.
Да? Что-то опоздала она к нам.
И, возможно, она меня знает. Я, кстати, ее знал. Где-то я ее видел.
Вот тут мы встретились. Помнишь, такая молодая была? Худая?
Да.
Вот там вот топовая девка была.
Да.
Я там смотрел ее фотки, я чуть не это самое. Чуть не потерял сознание. В
Иногда
Инстаграме.
украинки не выглядят как украинки. Потому что они супер красивые.
Ого, сегодня куча людей. Если все будут играть, я, может, не буду последним. Так зачем ему вам скидывать экранские? Куда идете? Идем в Нандос играть в Уно.
А вы идите бухайте.
А вы боярку наливайте себе. Это что такое? Что это валяется?
Давайте жрите водку, пьяный медведь подыграет.
Ты чё, чему не видишь, что вам пишут? Раша, швайный капут, стереотипы. Какой президент, такие граждане?
Это ты, блин, швайный капут.
Попрошайки, попрошайки. Научись писать по-русски.
Подайте бедному на пропитание, да поможет вам всем Путин.
Слава Украине, завязывайте на русском разговаривать. А мы с Донбасса, мы имеем право говорить на родном языке. Ты же с Донбасса?
Я с Донбасса.
И я с Донбасса. Кстати, среди нас есть человек из Москвы, но в маске. Из России, гражданин России. Так что... Так.
Ну и как вам это нравится, товарищи?
Думаю, о чем мы переобулись. Ще не вмерла Украина. Так.
А ты разуйся.
Вы где находитесь? Мы находимся планета Земля. Вот где мы находимся. Опа, а что тут?
Планета Земля.
А тут какой-то большой передел, да. Из Донбасса.
Вот видите, у нас дороги делают, а у вас там что?
У них там дырки делают. Седай. Капитуляцию Украины. Да-да, капитуляция. Капитуляция в Курской области.
Давайте деньги на дырки.
О, 350 людей в онлайне. Но осталось минут 10. Мы как придем, отключимся. Ой, холодно, я твою мать. Это не у нас. О, вот тут перекрыли. Ничего себе. Прошайки. Был я у вас. Ага. Латвия с вами. Палдец, Латвия. Это Англия. Привет, попрошайки, как придете? Ага. Скоро будет, как придете? Ага. Тут я смотрю, геев собралось в чате. Все о членах думают.
Что Что, господа, я смотрю, вы там засали.
Так, ти сало виїбала. О, видиш як? Ще не вмерла. Волки. Волки позорні.
Натягнута вагина.
Витя, Виктор. Ты боярку сегодня принимал?
Ага, лучше віагру.
Лицеміри. Як підемо? Пішли. Тут?
Давай, Віталік, відключай тих зет.
Виключати? А я так. Сейчас выключаем. Выключаем?
Выключаем.
Вот вам чуть-чуть тортилы, и мы